Hi everyone, my name is Sherry Gasparelli, and please excuse the bruise on my chin. I fell and hit my chin while I was playing tennis this last weekend, so that's why I have the big bruise on my chin. Anyway, my name is Sherry Gasparelli. I am a registered nurse in the operating room at Duke, and I recently participated in a collegiate debate with all of you to discuss North Carolina HB 789, which is the End of Life Option Act. So I really appreciated everyone's pros and cons to this particular piece of legislation. Thought it was really interesting what people had to say. So the argument that I found to be the most compelling is the patient's right to autonomy. I believe that having autonomy over one's actions and decisions is pretty fundamental, and therefore, to me, it naturally extends that with terminally ill patients who wish to choose when to die, that having this autonomy would be the next logical step. And this legislation would allow terminally ill people the dignity and quality of life they deserve by having the option to end their life when they decide. On the other side, the best argument I saw against this legislation had to do with one's moral and religious objections to assisting in someone's suicide, regardless of whether or not they were terminally ill. For example, I know that there are statements that have been published by the American Medical Association and the American Nurses Association taking positions against requiring healthcare providers to participate in ending a patient's life. So I know that there's some strong feelings, at least among healthcare providers, about this particular bill. Although it has been passed in other states, so it's kind of interesting because North Carolina is not the first state where this legislation has been considered or has been passed. The current state of this legislation in North Carolina is that it is stalled in the House. It's been referred to the Committee on Rules, Calendar, and Operations of the House since April 13th, 2017. It was introduced on April 11th, 2017. So it's been over a year that it's been sitting there with no further action. My personal stance on this legislation is that I'm actually for this legislation. I believe that a person has a right to choose to die with dignity. I also believe that it would alleviate unnecessary suffering at the end of life. And maybe neither here nor there, but it's in general less costly than hospice or palliative care. I think that the next step for this bill is to move through the committee process and to be brought in front of the House for a vote, which would be nice if that happened sooner rather than later, because I know that there's probably a lot of people who would benefit from this. The only other point I think that I would make about this particular bill, or that I thought it was a weakness of the bill, is that it didn't spell out the exact criteria that would be used for determining someone's mental capacity. So I thought that that could be something that they could perhaps write into the bill a little bit more clearly, just so that there's not as much subjectivity in determining one's mental capacity. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and I am looking forward to seeing everyone else's.